Welcome back to Takeout. Look, I know it's a cliche to say it's crunch time for the House Republican majority. What week isn't a crunch time for the House Republican majority? The margins are so narrow, lots of legislative items, but this week really is. Lots of bills that are pending. Kevin Kiley joins us now from Capitol Hill. Former Republican, he's an independent, but he still votes procedurally and otherwise with Republicans more often than not. Congressman, great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. So the first item of business I want to ask you about, $67 billion request from the Pentagon to replenish depleted and soon to expire funding for this war. You in favor of that? Do you think it's going to pass in the House tomorrow?
Well, I've said that we need to fund our troops, of course, but this is not the way to do that. I've made it very clear that going down this path of budget reconciliation, which is by definition a strictly party line process, is not the way to provide additional funding in a way that will assert Congress's Article 1 authority and ultimately facilitate an end to this conflict on acceptable terms. So I'm very skeptical about the reconciliation process itself. The way this has been set forward is not designed to have the sort of intense congressional involvement and scrutiny and oversight that I think is needed at this point. So I'm disappointed that this is how it's played out.
You're going to vote no?
I'm very unlikely to support it. You know, I'm always open to arguments on either side and to new evidence as it comes forward. But at this point, based upon what I said from the outset, it's very unlikely this is something that I'll support.
Because to your point, Congressman, if you use reconciliation and the legislative language arrives pretty late in the process, as it has, it's essentially a jam job for everyone in the body, up or down, and you don't have a lot of oversight or scrutiny of the underlying budget or reasons behind it. That's why you're angry.
That's right. And even beyond that, this is really Congress's opportunity to be involved in ending this conflict to the extent that we should have been involved since its beginning, because that is the power of Congress. That's our most important power, is the power of the purse. And so, yes, the administration is coming to Congress saying that we need funding. And so Congress can say, okay, we will provide funding for X, Y, and Z, but not for A, B, and C. Or we're going to provide funding with this limitation. Or we're going to provide funding, for example, for the sort of negotiations and outreach to the Gulf states and other allies that I think we need in order to make any agreement and peace here more durable. The fact that Congress is missing that opportunity, I think, is very unfortunate.
So let's dig into this a bit deeper. If you're a no, Thomas Massie is a no. That might mean other Republicans are a no. And if this thing goes down, there's no Senate vehicle to take up. The House is due to leave town later this week and not return until late in August. This could go unresolved for all of the remainder of this break. Is that right?
Well, what should happen is we should then have a bipartisan product, because I absolutely think we need to assure that we replenish the stockpiles that have been depleted. And I know that folks on both sides of the aisle think that, believe that. But, you know, we need to come up with a number that makes sense and uses of those funds that make sense, because Americans don't want this thing to keep dragging on and on and on. I think Americans are tired of the whiplash and this high wire act, this ad hoc, we're having an agreement this day, but then we're back to bombing the next day. I think people understand that, you know, it's very difficult to reach a resolution where you're dealing with a regime like the Iranians. But we can't have this continue to drag on indefinitely. And I think that the way that we make progress towards bringing it to an end, while assuring we get the Strait of Hormuz open and we assure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon, is to have Congress involved in a bipartisan way.
But you know the White House wants this reconciliation vehicle because it also wants the so-called SAVE Act. It wants all of those things and is basically defying members of Congress like you to say no and take the wrath of the White House and possibly the MAGA base. I know that's less important to you than it used to be.
Well, this is something that I have an issue with as well. I think when we're dealing with funding our troops, vital national security objectives, it shouldn't be tossed in with some other unrelated legislation. We should be considering this on its own terms. What sort of funding at this moment will protect our troops, will give us the best opportunity to wind this conflict down while achieving the important objectives of opening the strait and ensuring Iran doesn't get nuclear weapons. Bringing in extraneous legislation, I don't think advances that goal at all.
So before I let you go, do you think all this, carefully crafted by the House Republican leadership and the Speaker, Mike Johnson, is going to come and collapse on the floor tomorrow and Thursday?
You know, Major, I don't know that I want to be in the prediction business. The House has surprised in ways both good and bad many times so far this year. But I will say it is unfortunate that we're having so much that is coming to a head in 1 week. I mean, we had many prior weeks where the House was sent home early because of dysfunction. We had the longest government shutdown in U.S. history where the House wasn't here for 7 consecutive weeks. So I don't really think this is a good model for how the legislative process should work. But that being said, we do have a number of important items that are up this week. So I hope that the House can rise to the occasion and legislate in the interest of the American people.
If it doesn't, it'll be dysfunction with a capital D. Congressman Kevin Kiley, independent of California. I appreciate the time. Thank you.